we have to be able to see that some of our collective action problems can only be solved together. There is no world in which a small country within the region can have the answers to everything. Let's take, I guess, health, for example. I don't know that each of these countries have the resources to be able to provide the world-class health for every single possible issue. But Barbados is 30 minutes away. Dominica, probably 15 or 20. There has to be a world in which we can create centers of excellence across the region in very select, distinct matters. And whether it is that Jamaica then becomes the center of excellence for athletics, there's no problem in which we ensure that we have some level of elite training here, but also within the regional framework understand that other countries have skill sets that we can benefit from as well. And there has to be a world in which we understand that all of these things can coexist. You can be Saint Lucian while still being a West Indian. These two things are not in conflict.
Every so often, a society produces a mind that seems to arrive ahead of its time, not merely promising, but already formed. Not the leader we are told to wait for, but one plainly present among us. We are fond of calling our young people the leaders of tomorrow. Now and again, one appears who is unmistakably a leader of today. We tend to reserve the title of nation builder for those who pour concrete, create jobs, or win elections. But nations are built, too, by those who think, by those who sharpen ideas, who give a people a language of their aspirations, for their convictions, a language of hope. In a region still tempted to look abroad for its validation, there is something quietly defiant about a young Saint Lucian who reads deeply, reasons clearly, and refuses to make himself small. Nelson Mandela, who understood, as well as anyone, how ideas outlast empires, reminds us of this. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Our next guest has taken that weapon seriously, not as an ornament to be admired, but an instrument to be used. The region caught a glimpse of this not too long ago at the opening of the 51st meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, held right here in Saint Lucia. He rose before heads of state and government and delivered an address of such clarity, of such conviction, that the room took note. He is a Rhodes Scholar, among the highest honors a young mind can be afforded. Yet what strikes those who know him is not the accolade, but the appetite behind it. For the law, for justice, for history, the history that made us, and for the hard questions we too often avoid. He has been described as one of the foremost young intellectuals this country has produced. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the 1461 podcast, Mr. Rahym Augustin-Joseph. Welcome to the 1461 podcast.
The 1461 podcast is brought to you by Bryson Company Limited in partnership with IBS, Harbor Club, Tropical Solar, and 1461 Enterprise, distributors of the world's best coffee.
Today we are very pleased to have one of the foremost intellectuals this country has produced. Someone who has blazed a trail through academia not only in Saint Lucia but at Cayville and now at Oxford. Someone who presented a clarion call to the heads of government at the recently concluded Heads of Government Conference right here in Saint Lucia. I am pleased to welcome to the 1461 podcast Mr. Rahym Augustin-Joseph. Welcome, Rahym, to the
Thank
1461
you very
podcast.
much for having me, Stephen. And let me say even from the onset how happy I am to watch the episodes. And of course, now I have to probably watch myself. So, thank you for having me.
Well, I have a feeling for that because you will be watching yourself and have been watching yourself because you were one of the stars at the recently concluded Heads of Government Conference. And I must congratulate you as well for giving a clarion call to the heads of government and state on what a purposeful future could look like for members of the region, particularly the young people. So well done.
Thank you.
So before we talk about your phenomenal performance at the heads of government, your journey, which is remarkable, I always start from the beginning, as you would know. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us about Rahym. Who is Rahym? Tell us about your people, your family, your siblings, where you came from. Give us some texture to the gentleman we see before us.
I hope my family wouldn't mind me putting out all their business as we commonly say. But as I tell people every time they ask me the question, is that I'm no different from any other boy growing up in Bexar, Saint Lucia. Attended the Otsa Primary School, very close, a stone's throw away. I at times walked to school, but I think my mother probably did not want me to for fear that I probably would not reach school. But grew up in the very firm but loving enclave of a family of educators. My mother is still a primary school teacher at Camille Henry. My grandmother, a teacher retired now at Corinth Secondary, auntie, a teacher, a cousin. So I have also resisted the medicine that is of possibly becoming a teacher. But I grew up within that type of environment. And just like any other boy at that time, loved to run around and play, saw myself as a possible future cricketer. I guess I learned some of the lessons from there, but not making it to the highest level as I imagined. But again, even at least in my own recollection, I always at sometimes believe I had a passion for learning and teaching. I remember myself hypothetically teaching on a blackboard downstairs to dirt and mortar, and really teaching concepts to nobody. So I remember these moments very, very fondly as a child. So that is Rahym in a nutshell.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah. I have a younger brother who has just passed for the Leon Hess Secondary School.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Doing the CPA, and also my sister who just graduated from Corinth and received the best female athlete of the year. So I guess a well all-around menu, and what I am not doing, they
are doing. Yeah. So congratulations to your brother and to your sister. So you're the first one.
The first.
So that puts a lot of pressure on you, I guess.
I guess to some extent, or probably puts pressures on them. I don't know. I tend to ensure that others do not have
the
same expectations, and everybody could chart their own path.
Now, when I hear of persons who are achieving or have achieved, I think if you look back and you sort of connect the dots backwards, as Steve Jobs would have said in that famous interview, his book actually, by Walter Isaacson, you must find the foundation, the rudiments of your own success in that journey, in that original story. What did you learn from your mom or the educators in your family which gave you a thirst for knowledge? Or do you think that's sort of inherently acquired? What was that foundation like, and how did that set you apart and set you on this wonderful journey that you've been on?
Yeah. I mean, educators call it the hidden curriculum, if you like, of things that you learn as part and parcel of being in a family. And of course, obviously, in the moment, you don't think about it. But my own reflection causes me to believe that the ideas of hard work and determination and excellence and pushing. I remember this one time getting possibly 98 in primary school, and my mother asked me, where's the other 2%? So obviously, upon the reflection, it's not necessarily a lack of satisfaction for the grade, but a firm understanding that you could always do better. And over time, that concretized itself into a belief that we didn't have the largesse that other people would normally have, and therefore it was cemented in my mind that this is the route through which you can expand your life's possibilities. And of course, at times you don't understand it because you're busy wanting to do every other thing. But she was very, very clear, and a lot of them were within the family, that this had to have been the route within which you can succeed. And it's not because it's because you have a particular ability for it, but you must also push yourself to be able to achieve it. So I think these elements, at least in my mind, have at times caused me to be able to achieve in the way that I have. I could tell you, however, that there are many times along that journey that I engaged in what boys at that time did. Just I couldn't care less about this school or this subject, or I felt that I just did not have an ability for that, and therefore I did not put myself in the work. But I guess all within the time. And I remember it concretely, probably about Form 3, Form 4, when picking the subjects, and I had the dreaded mock exam, which, by the way, is always much more difficult than the actual real exam. And I remember not doing very well, and I remember my family not being very happy, and possibly saying, well, you have to stop cricket because clearly this is the path that's causing some of the issues. But I only say all of this to say that it has not always been a linear path, and that there have been times when I have questioned the relevance of this and the relevance of that. But I was very clear in my mind, even upon choosing subjects, that I was doing things that I was very, very passionate about, and being able to use that as a platform through which I could succeed.
So, cricket.
Yeah.
Did that instill some fundamentals in you as well? Competitiveness. In fact, a dear friend of mine recently indicated to me that quite a number of Fortune 500 CEOs, or those people who have achieved great outcomes professionally, sport is an important part of their own journey.
Yeah.
Did sport shape you as well?
Of course. I mean, I could think of a myriad of stories, but teamwork, the hard work and determination. I remember, of course, I think that's where my leadership probably was first recognized or seen. I remember being the captain of possibly every team that I played with, and certainly not because I was the best player, but because I think at that time the coaches recognized that I had some leadership ability. And again, my own reflection causes me to understand that it teaches people how to bargain, how to deal with multiple different personalities on the same team who have the same objective but just have different ways of being able to achieve it. But it also causes you at times to reconcile with your own difficulties. I remember a time in a post-team meeting, a player said, but coach, you have me on the bench there and the captain and the skipper are doing nothing. So really, and it causes you to reflect that, yes, you have to be able to shepherd a team, but you also have to bring something to the table as well. But it taught me a lot of these things. And of course, at times, whether it be in under 15 cricket or under 19 when I didn't make the team, etc., it causes you to reconcile with the hardships of failure, and that you could do so much at times, at least in your belief, and still not possibly achieve that what you want.
Do you think that on reflection that you did your best, or do you think that you were naturally limited, or do you think that you could have done more?
I think I could have done a lot more. I think from very early I could have exuded a lot more patience. I could have used up here a lot more. Within cricket, because all of the cricket is up here, right? And again, if I could do it all over, there are so many things that I would change. Well, probably I wouldn't, but suffice it to say that I think at times there was a lot more that I could have done to be able to advance myself. But not taking away the experience, there are so many concrete lessons that I've learned from it. In relation to teamwork and respect and understanding your place in the team, and that sometimes it's not about you and there's a sacrifice for a much larger goal, and that there are people that you are going to interact with that you have to understand how to be able to bring out the best in them. And it may not be the same for everybody. and there are certain discrete things that you have to do with different individuals to get them as part of the team goal.
So sport, important part, family, important part. But you have blazed a trail that few others have. Was there a moment where you realized ideas are persuasive to you, that our ideas are important, that thinking and using your imagination, your creativity, and your intellect, that there was something that if you scratched a little more beneath the surface, there's a treasure to be had?
I don't know that there is any one particular moment, but at least some moments come to mind. So whether it be at the South Louis Community College, doing history and doing sociology and doing law, where the questions within the class and doing Caribbean studies, where the questions in the class ask you and force you almost to think deeper than what is met the surface. And I remember Dr. Fulgence always speaking about the production of history, and now history is produced by a particular individual or peoples for a particular objective, and therefore your job is really, as you said, is to uncover. I remember distinctly in Caribbean studies, Dr. Lucian, now that he is, it's almost berating, but in a very loving way, the class asking them, what is your generation thinking about? Because he could say, at least in his generation, he's thinking through Bob Marley, albeit before his time, Bob Marley, Marcus Garvey, etc. And he's asking the class, but what is your generation reading and reconciling with? These moments in my mind, and obviously all the way to the UWI as well, within the halls of the classroom and even outside, where individuals are asking your view and perspective on things, but at the same time you're reading and engaging with material, and you ask yourself, but there is something deeper here to be able to look at. And you look at the society around you, as I normally do, with at times disappointment, happiness, and you look at some of the issues and you say, but something has to be wrong here. And why is it that we're not getting this right? What are the prescriptions? What is the philosophies that we need to be able to engage in? And therefore, that is where the idea of nothing, there's no bad time for a very, very good idea, or whose time has come, as Jose Marti tells us. So it is within that realm and time that I've been able to at least see, yes, there is a power of ideas, because ideas create people, they create institutions, they create governance, they create the systems that we want to be able to create. So yeah.
So you've always been persuaded by the power of the idea and your role in shaping those ideas. And ultimately, ideas shape society.
Yeah.
Ideas are what put men on the moon.
Yeah.
Ideas are the very things which shape medicine and technology.
Yeah.
But at this moment in time, I think we have somewhat, and we'll go into that conversation a little later on, surrendered to the now. We've surrendered to reality. And those shapers who bend reality based on their own conviction never surrender to reality. Do you find that we are now surrendering to this reality and not giving a premium to ideas and thought and determination and conviction and hope in this country?
I think you're right. I worry that the traditional cliche narrative has been that it has always been this way, which I think is part of the most dangerous parts of our vocabulary. When you ask individuals, even when they speak about the law, they speak about things within the society, you ask them about it and they say, well, that's how it is.
That's how it is, yeah.
Or you ask whether it be police officers or administrators within the society about particular rules, and they say, well, that's the rule. And very little time do we ever spend in providing the underpinning or justification for the rule in the first place. So I worry as well that we have, as you said, been captured by the present moment, fixated on it almost, that we don't think deeper beyond the current surface and ask ourselves, but what is the idea and the vision that we want to be able to have for the future? And how is it that we can marshal a new type of thinking and thought leadership that allows us to say, well, this isn't working, or a sort of future proofing or future casting that allows us to think through some things different. I see countries like Japan and the others, for example, talking about the sort of future commissions and bringing individuals in rooms and telling them as best as they can to ignore every single existing reality that you could think of right now and tell me what you think a future looks like. So I worry at times that we have become anti-intellectual, if you will, where the intellectuals at times are cast aside within the society because, them fellows over there are always just thinking.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That too high.
That too high, that too. Now, I don't doubt that at times the intellectuals at times behave esoteric as opposed to an intellectualism of the people. I'm not disputing that fact, but I worry that within this sort of political enclave, forgetting that ideas is what will shape the future and shape the present. So you're absolutely right.
I worry at times that, and maybe I'm being cynical and you would forgive me if I am, that the unsustainable status quo is sustained and preserved purposely because of perverse incentives. In other words, not paying sufficient attention to what that future is, to how you could shape that future for not us only, but the future generation, and maintaining the status quo, certainly in areas where we have the capacity and the agency to change, sometimes sustained by perverse incentives. And what I mean by that is there are things which could be changed institutionally, administratively. For example, I'll give you an without mentioning the agency, and this is not to cast aspersions. You need to get a stamp here, go get a stamp there, go get a stamp there, and then go back to the first person that you went to and present. I mean, that could be done by, you could do that on an app.
Yeah.
But there's a perverse incentive in that bureaucratic chain, which makes it impossible for an app to replace that inefficient process. Right. So sometimes it could be perverse incentives sustaining a status quo which is not sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, so to your last point, you're right, and I think at times I have a very weird experiment that I want to be able to implement as part of. I say implement as if I'm in a position of power so to do, but
you soon will be.
Suffice it to say, somebody literally going across all of the government administrations and ministries and being troublesome and pedantic and saying, why does this have to be this way and that way and that way? Or alternatively, doing a sort of experiment and review of how long it takes to be able to do very simple processes and sort of mapping out every single step to see where the duplicity exists. That's on one side. The other thing is that I do think, obviously, there are individuals or looters as part of any system who benefit from maintaining things as they currently are. But it doesn't escape my mind as well, however, that people within the society at times do indeed clamor for things to be changed. They may not say it in the language that I do, but when a vendor in the market talking to the customers or talking to people and saying, watching the news at midday and saying, that make no sense, that wrong, that is a sense of saying something has to be done. They may not say it in the way that I may, they may not say, but everyone has their own fashion way of being able to see injustice within the society. The role of the officials, however, the role of those who are part of the hierarchy of the system is to be able to translate that agony into real practical solutions. And at times, I think, as you've said, that we have not at times made life very, very simple for ordinary people within this country or within the Caribbean region as a whole. I see the banks now are possibly listening and trying to reduce the opening of the bank account issues and all of these things. So, but there are very simple things, as you've mentioned, across so many strata that we could, in a nutshell, be able to go and think and rethink and redo. And it boggles the mind as well, to me, why at times we still have not done it.
But we go back to the point before we break, which started us off going down into this rabbit hole, is that without the capacity to reason, without the capacity to see clearly what that future can be, moving beyond the status quo, and without the capacity, and that's why I think your story and your journey is so important, to activate ideas, we can't go forward.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll come back to Rahym and discover a little more about him and his journey.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
As a building contractor, the success of my projects depends on the quality of materials and the reliability of my suppliers. Bryson Company has consistently provided high-grade roofing and steel products that meet the standards required for both residential and commercial work. The customer service is excellent. Orders are processed efficiently and delivery is always timely. I appreciate their professionalism and commitment to quality, which makes them a trusted partner in my business.
To experience the benefits of a tropical solar water heating system, call 453-1868 in Castries or 454-6344 in Vieux-Fort.
So we've gone through a few topics, and I want to start going a little deeper to where you are today. On your journey, which, as I indicated, has been an incredible one, you must have had a few mentors, a few intellectual and other guardians or persons who would have encouraged you, who would have given you guidance, who would have helped shape the person that you are today.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing some of those persons, the names of some of those persons who played an important part in your development, and what was that part?
Yeah. You see, fortunate for me, I've been able to benefit from so much schooling that at every institution that you go to, you make a whole new set of mothers and fathers who you then can bounce things off. But at least on the top of my mind, Professor Cynthia Barrajas, the Saint Lucian political scientist at UWI, has always been instrumental. Dr. Augustin-Joseph as well, as part of my UWI years, Janice Remy as well, Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, Dr. Ronnie Yearwood. Listen, at every single institution, and of course I could go back to secondary school with Mr. Sion and Mrs. Atkinson and Mr. Giraru and Miss Boxell, and I could literally give you a litany. And of course, the staff are Louis, Dr. Fulgens, Miss Trezel, Miss John, Mrs. Fannis. I could give you a litany across every single institution of adopted mothers and fathers who have shepherded me across all of these journeys.
So it is true that they say a child, of course I'm just paraphrasing what the saying is, or individual is not shaped by an individual but by a community.
Yeah.
And you've had a strong community behind you. Growing up, before you got to where you are now, you must have had some impressions of yourself. Living in Bexor, which is a place I'm very familiar with. I would go down to Bexor with my father, deceased, every Friday to the Medricks in Bexor. But it's away from the Castries at that time, at least for me. How did you see yourself growing up then? What did you see for yourself at that time? And how did you go from being away from, I guess, from the institutions that would later shape you, to see the full potential for you? How did you see yourself then? And what gave you the confidence to dream bigger?
Yeah. I mean, when you're within the environment as I was, you don't see anything outside of that. So You play football on the outer field with all of the other fellas there, and you're in the best place in the world, right? You go and you play cricket in the quarry as we did just higher up my house, and you feel as if you are the best in the world. But there is something that happened. I think obviously the St. Mary's College years, when I left the Otsa Combine, I was the only student who attended the St. Mary's.
Wow.
And at least my own reflection reminds me now of that sort of question of belonging, being there among individuals from Dame Paulette and Camille Henry who are there in the numbers, right? And everybody know everybody already because they walked this journey from grade 1 to grade 6 with them, and they could talk to each other, and you're just alone in a place in a very weird way. But the anthem, and I mean, my uncle also went to St. Mary's, so I was sort of schooled even before of what to expect and what to do, and learning of the school song before and all sorts of stuff, because you had to feel as part of that community. And I think it was at that time of the school song being sung that I then felt as being part of that community, and then learning of boys who lived close by or attended the Cicero school and this, and then you sort of start to connect the dots as part of being a wider community, while still at times feeling that you don't have that you don't belong. But again, I remembered very clearly individuals telling me, even throughout this journey and after, that you're better than no one, but also nobody's better than you, and that you have worked as hard or harder than other individuals who are there, and therefore you have your rightful place in this place. But your rightful place can only be determined if you also demonstrate why you are here. And to that extent, I think over time I started to garner that confidence, but also I think I always had a loud mouth. So to the extent that in Form 3 and Form 4, somebody, Mrs. Atkinson, just sort of picked me up from the volleyball court, say, you have a lot of mouth, you just talking, making a lot of noise over there. Come, I have this public speaking and debating club I think you should join. And I think it was at that moment then that I started to harness the confidence skills to be able to speak and realize that you also have ideas about the society that you live in. You have a perspective from the place that you live in. And I think that has sort of gone all throughout the journey, even at the University of Oxford now, being able to stand in the class and times and say that this may not be the case for the Global South. And I can tell you what the reality is.
Because you lived it.
Because I've lived it and I've experienced it. So I think in ebbs and flows across the various educational institutions or just within the place in the world, whether it be the Rhodes Scholarship, whether it be at UWI from Saint Lucia, all of these things put themselves together in a nice bouillon that allowed me to say, you are part of this place because you've worked hard.
So your sense of belonging comes not as a matter of entitlement, but because you have earned it. Through your effort, through your work, and through your delivery. Excellent.
And for me, I have always ensured that it's not just, again, the accolades are irrelevant to me. It's not about being the first or the second or the third. It's about ensuring that other individuals can also walk that path, and that I could ensure that I've utilized the knowledge and bring back and engage people on what has been learned and be within the society as part of effecting that change.
Now, I want to sort of go into the deeper questions, which we, I know entertain your thinking. And some of those questions which you maybe uncomfortably brought to some of the heads of government in a very elegant way during your very important address to the 51st session of heads of government, of the heads of government of the Caribbean community. In reviewing your CV, one of the things which I noticed is that you were part of a reparations committee or council. What is your view on reparations? And what importance does that hold for our future? Not our past, but our future. What are your views on reparations?
So, I mean, without even historicizing too much, I think that a lot had been taken from this region, whether it be resources, whether it be the cultural confidence, whether it be the psychological issues as a result, whether it be the fact that we have inherited countries essentially broke, and then you have to build back, or but not back, but build from scratch on a tabula rasa, but also with pre-existing challenges before. Whether it be the dehumanization, all of these things are part and parcel of the original sin. And in much the same way in law and any other questions, when there is a sin, people ask for justice to be done. And in that light, I believe strongly in the reparatory justice movement, because it is a way and a method to be able to correct historical wrongs that, again, sometimes people think are of so much of a distant past, which and I beg to differ. Whether it be something as simple as our aversion to the question of hair, and boys being able to go to school and wear their hair as they please, and the argument then becomes, well, distracting, it's not neat, it's not kept tidy. But there's a comparison of tidiness to what? How does one sit and define tidy? What is so special about a 1 centimeter hair vis-a-vis a 2 centimeter? Or how does that correlate or with other individuals of different ethnicities who are allowed to wear their hair as they so please? What about the persecution of Rastafari? What about the way in which we go about within the streets with a lack of self-confidence, believing that the only time we must be nice to people is when somebody has come from a cruise port terminal from overseas? And that is the only time that we love and engage with people and we put on our best smiles. And how is it that at times we think that our accent must change when we go overseas to be able to...
Do you think compensation would address those fundamental questions of self-esteem?
I don't think it will fully heal these wounds. I think we have a lot of decolonization to do. Right? I think it will help in addressing some of the historical wrongs, whether it be questions of non-communicable diseases, whether it be the debt burdens of the country. But what you're talking about is a much more fundamental, deeper question about self-confidence, which I think is a whole new malaise of things that we have to do. And the truth is, within our institutions, there is still at times a reverence for people that don't look like us, that don't sound like us. Our stories are hidden somewhere in footnotes, etc. All of that is part of a lack of self-confidence that we've perpetuated over time. And not raising young boys and young girls within the society to believe and love themselves and be satisfied with how they look and how they feel within the wider society.
But is there a financial figure or a monetary figure which can, or even a monetary commitment or execution against that commitment, which could help take forward the society? And I ask that question because I'm still a bit agnostic about reparations, for the simple reason that I believe that we also have a huge responsibility for ourselves. I once had the benefit of listening to Professor Hilary Beckel speak very clearly about how slavery has made some non-communicable diseases sort of endemic in the Caribbean, some of the highest incidence of hypertension and diabetes because of our food intake, high levels of salt and sodium, and because of this transatlantic slave trade. But then I think, what are we doing now? When I walk through the supermarkets and I see what we eat and what we drink, when I see the cultural approach to food consumption here, is that because of what took place 300 or 400 years ago, or perhaps 150 years ago? So I wondered to what extent we also bear a responsibility for our circumstance now, and whether reparations by themselves can address our stubbornness and our unwillingness to change and breaking with the status quo. The second point, which entertains me, not necessarily in a good way, is we've had a windfall of resources, right? In the last 10 years, I reckon that we've earned $5 to $6 billion US dollars from Saint Lucia, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, through the CIP. Roughly $13 billion windfall. Where's that money? Has it changed our lives? So I come from the point of view and the school of thought that money does not necessarily change outcomes. It's the thinking and the mentality that informs how resources are used, which change lives. And we could go to like many different anecdotes about persons who were, struggling, who won the lottery. 10 years later, where are they? Unless you have the rudiments, the underpinning to use those resources effectively and sustainably, you are likely to put yourself even further back than you are. So that's why I'm agnostic. Have we done the groundwork to accept resources when we have squandered our very own? And have we done the groundwork to become better versions of ourselves, empower each other, support each other, have more Black businessmen work with each other rather than tearing them down, each other down? Have we decided that I'm going to go to this young lady's store and buy from her rather than this multinational because I want to support her because she's a young lady doing something for herself? I'm going to go to that restaurant because I want to support him. He's a young man. Rather than go to that international option.
Yeah.
Have we done that?
Two things can be true. On the one end, I think the provision of resources from those who have done and engaged in the original sin, who, by the way, have profited enormously from the dehumanization of Black lives the world over, whether it be through the ports all across the UK, whether it be the banks who are thriving today, save and accept, or only because, well, not only because, but partly because of their riches from the transatlantic slave trade, whether it be the universities within the UK who are now reckoning with their slave past and saying, all right, we're going to give you one scholarship here, and they all recognize that there is a debt to be paid. So on one end, I still submit that the resources can play a major role in being able to rebalance some of the injustices within the current society that we face and that we see going across generations. Therefore, so that's on one end, rather, right? But it does not also escape my mind also that we also have at times engaged in injustices within the society that may not be the cause of anybody else. These two things are not mutually, these things can be mutually exclusive. And therefore one does not trump the other. We have to continue to be able to make the advocacy, and we must also chew gum while we're engaging in that walk. And at times I think we have not necessarily blamed enslavement too much for things that happen in the society, because I think, however, there is still an explanation that needs to happen, because a lot of the issues that you mentioned, they could see them running through ebbs and flows, and linking directly to the historical past. But it does not take away, as you said, that there are some things right now that we can and we have to be able to work on for ourselves and think through and be able to solve them.
I sometimes, and I take your point, and I mean, of course, for me, I'm not fully clear in my mind where I stand fundamentally on the question, and of course, I would be in solidarity with anything which advances my people and the people of the region. But I do also think we're trapped in this mindset of lack of agency, personal agency, societal agency, that my default is a consequence of your action, that I am a victim of your actions. And for me as an individual, I know that we have agency. I see our agency. And again, I don't want to conflate the two.
Yeah.
Taking personal responsibility, taking accountability, having agency, and giving full expression to that agency doesn't mean that we can't address historical injustices.
Yeah.
But I fear that some in that discussion are promoting reparations as a means of absolving themselves from fundamental policy, absolving themselves from our collective failure, absolving themselves from the fact that our institutions, without exception almost, are in not ideal states of governance, absolving ourselves of the fact that tourism and most of the economic drivers in this country, the distribution of value, it's not what it should be. So, as a fundamental question of justice, I agree. As a fundamental question of progress, it's too early to tell whether it would fundamentally change the course of our journey. So we'll discover a little more after the break. After the break, we'll discuss a little bit more about reparations, but we'll also look at some of the institutions of our region which we need to strengthen and take forward so we could be a better people. See you after the break.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
Yo, Khalid, yeah. Keep out your butt, son.
Keeper, how you bad?
Y'all ask me thought, give me and I tell me fi pokey. She a tell me step fi grab it throat and choke it.
She a send picture and I send me emoji. They give me good brain and I give her a trophy.
Khalid and Dada, Louis V shirt and a new bank crabber. We a tweet first and the whole of them a follow. Y'all them a twerk and I say them want hammer. Y'all them a bubble and a wine and car. So me a press gas, me a drive on.
First nigga for no day, you know what man, no nigga for no day. No me say first nigga for no day. Ay, we have a bad bite, we ain't the bad take about the best ride. But we go for good, we no been paradise. Your pop so tight and your pop paradise. But come me on bike, c'est un gars, c'est un mec.
Si on pas content, c'est la même. Rien à foutre, vas-y pour la main. Son a yo bof, yo ka fait moins la peine. Son ka pas moins la flemme, son ka sucer pour ni la fame. C'est nous qui boss, oui be moi, même police peut pas stop. Pas fait faute, nous qui n'est ça c'est contrôle. Even nous, ça ka grillé, nous toujours bien habillés. L'on dit jusqu'à ka briller, c'est nous qui boss, oui be moi, même police peut pas stop. Pas fait faute, nous qui n'est ça c'est contrôle. Even nous, ça ka grillé, nous toujours bien habillés. L'on dit jusqu'à ka briller.
C'est dedans, nous trois à l'aise. Nous sommes dehors ce soir, tonight we outside.
I have been using water pumps for many, many years, both at my commercial properties, residential properties. And one of the issues I've always had is reliability, high cost of maintenance. One of the major issues is if there's no water in the pump keep running and the pump would shut down or even burn in some cases. I did some research and came across the Pedrello from Bryson Company. I installed one of them on a trial and found it to be very reliable, very efficient. Cost was great as well. And most of all, it was 100% built in Italian. We know the Italian product is one of the best. I stuck with it. If you're looking for a high performance, great quality pump, look no further than the Pedrello pump from Bryson Company. You simply cannot go wrong.
I must again say, brilliant address to the heads of government. And one of the many things which struck me, very clear and dynamic presentation. You spoke of two things which are maybe are true, but maybe not, let's say, compatible with each other.
Okay.
And I speak here of the CCJ, which you made a clarion call to the leaders, to the heads to advance. But also in that conversation with them, you also noted the poor state of our institutions and the need for these institutions to do better. How do you have confidence that the CCJ will live up to its own expectations when we look at the institutions in the region? And I think you coined the term the institutional deficiencies or deficits. How do you bring the two together? Acknowledging that we have failed in terms of the regional institutions, but at the same time challenging us to domesticate our court in circumstances where the other institutions have not succeeded.
Yeah. For me, it's also part of the false binary that I spoke about. That at times we think that because we are not living up to the fullest potential that we have, that we believe that somebody else is possibly more optimal. And therefore we should go to another route or somewhere else or far off because we think that we have not done sufficiently well, and therefore there is some right particular moment in which we will just do amazing, and therefore we can make that shift. I don't know that that is possible, right? So every time I hear, for example, a regional politician say that, well, now is not the time to be able to accede to the CCJ because there are things that need to be sorted out. I say, okay, fine, all right. And then when these things get sorted out, when will that be? Or alternatively, then the things get sorted out, then you say, oh, and now is not the right time because God forbid a hurricane has come and then the priorities shift again. There's always a shifting goalpost as distinct from saying, I'm going to engage in this institution while still holding it accountable. Nobody ever said that you accede to the court or any other institution within the region and not at times do all that you can to ensure that there is accountability.
I don't think there's a question of the legitimacy of the institution. I think there's a question or the fear of the undue politicization of the judgments from the institution.
I've heard this point over, and I at times I've looked at the judgments to be able to see where the idea comes from. I think, at least as it currently stands, the court has done the best that it can to be able to insulate itself from politicization within the region. Look at the way that the individuals of the court are appointed within the CCJ. You have a wide gamut of professions, whether it be the Bar Association, whether it be the insurance agencies have a nominee, whether it be CARICOM heads of government having the final say in relation to the president. I cannot think of any other method, at least in my mind, to be able to ensure politicization, at least in a structural way. Now, I always make the comparison then to the Privy Council, which is not appointed in this very fulsome way of all of these individuals having a say as part of it. And as you know, the House of Lords individuals at times in the recent past has been part of the court process. If you look at the US system equally, it is the president who sits there and then confirmed by Senate determining who the justices of the Supreme Court are, such that there is a huge debate now in the US about whether this judge is a conservative vis-a-vis a liberal. So these problems exist everywhere in the world. And therefore, in my mind, I don't know at what point in time do we say we are sufficiently able enough to be able to trust our people and that our people are good enough and are able to dispense justice that is blind, but, as I said in the speech, not tone deaf to the social realities of the people, because justice should be blind, it should be impartial, but justice should not be something afar off in London where you have to you spend how much money to go over there and then you need a UK barrister to be able to plead your case, and then you're on a Zoom call before 5 justices that probably that couldn't care less where the Caribbean is, and I'm putting it in its most inelegant way, which again many times the Privy Council has also said we also tired of y'all. And I fear that the only time in which we are going to accede, at least the other countries, is when the Privy Council say, we tired of your go, please.
But are you not, given our historical antecedent and how the key pinnacle institutions have unfolded, does it give you a pause that we may also see the CCJ go in that direction of being through the legal or regional judicial and legal services commission, I think is the main body appointing the justices, that too will become subject to the whims and fancies of those persons who have a vested interest in outcomes?
I'm not fearful of that, because I still believe in the Caribbean people who are able to look at this and say, hey, you're not going in the right direction, right? What I'm fearful for, however, is those who stay outside of the football field in the pavilion and make the argument of this is not going well. But you have removed yourself from the game, Skipper. as opposed to getting in the game and trying as best as you can to maintain the institutional transparency, to be able to ensure that the court upholds justice as it is supposed to. Because when you're on the outside, it's a much different ballgame from being on the inside. So I take the point that at times we want to be able to ensure that our institutions remain transparent and impartial, right? And there is a certain fear. But the only way we can do that is if we engage in the process and ensuring that at every single instance we continue to look at what the court is doing very, very critically. But I'll tell you this, I think at times the court is also dealt a bad hand because at times regional politicians permit questions of justice to be administered only by court as opposed to dealing with public policy issues.
So it's a cop-out for politicians.
It is at times a cop-out because it's very easy to put your hand up put your head in the proverbial sand and say, the court determined it is the rule of law, what the court says must go.
But I mean, come on, I think that, and respectfully, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas has given the court the authority to interpret the treaty.
Yep.
And as it is the case, matters or in the court functioning in its original jurisdiction has every right to make findings on matters related to the interpretation of the treaty, of the revised treaty.
Yeah.
And we saw a recent example with the matter related to the reappointment of the Secretary General.
Yeah.
So is that a cop-out or is that just part of the...
Again, I was not speaking about the original jurisdiction in its most strict sense. But again, even that same treaty also speaks of good offices and negotiations and mediations and arbitration as part of solutions. Right? So when I speak of cop-out, I mean, of course, in other distinct areas. But I'm mindful and I'm very pleased that the institutions at times are also trusted to be able to make the decisions on behalf of the Caribbean people. And sometimes I think we forget, and I mean, I'm not sure that I made that point, but it's probably a point that I wanted to make, that where we have not done well is also because we have not celebrated the stories of regional integration in this region. It is the CCJ that pronounced on Shanique Mairi. It is that same CCJ that pronounced on so many of the other cases in relation to the common external tariff. It is the same CCJ that at times have said about freedom of movement and people being able to move unencumbered within this region. That's the same court. That the court at times do not always get decisions right is but parcel of any court process anywhere in the world. But it does not mean, as I made in the speech, that the only time that we love and support the court is when we win. Because if we win all the time, something clearly is wrong with the court.
So is there any connection between our previous discussion of I think Adrian Ogier called it self-loathing, that the inability of our people to appreciate themselves and their victories and their potential because of historical antecedent and colonialism, and how that has shaped our thinking. Do you think that is part of the legacy of that period, that we have not been sufficiently seized with the confidence to accept the court, at least in its appellate jurisdiction?
It is a deeper philosophical question, and you're right. I mentioned it in the speech, and I don't want to be repetitive, but Earl Lovelace, The Dragon Can't Dance is a phenomenal novel. He says that why everything that we do, we have to do it for somebody else. Why it's as if we have a self, but we only have a self for somebody else as distinct from ourselves. And Adrian, Dr. O'Shea is right, that at times I fear that there is always a seeking of validation for things that we have done well. So as opposed to just believing in the fact that it is sufficient for us and that we do not need any external validation from anybody else because we have done it and we have done it well. So it is part of that legacy in my mind, that second guessing, that lack of confidence, and I mean, I think I saw it as part of at least in the most recent example that came to mind is the question of the asylum seeking and the reduction of the visa imposition. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. But at first glance, every single reaction that I read said, but what did Saint Lucians do that caused the UK to be able to move visas? They did not analyze the fact that the UK is going through a right-wing transition now, and therefore anti-immigration is at its high. They're not going for the fact that the Labour Party is trying to attempt in the UK to go up just a bit rightward because they're trying to respond to the Tories and they're trying to respond to Farage. That is of no relevance to them. It is immediately something must have been wrong with us. And then, of course, the data comes out and the data speaks about these grave asylum-seeking numbers. 0.0001 of the total asylum seekers in the world. And mind you, there are countries that have much higher asylum seekers but no visas imposed on them. And I'm not engaging in the political game or battle about whether it is CBI or whether it's this or my problem is a more philosophical one, which is that at every single instance, somehow something must have been wrong with us.
And look, I take no argument with that.
Yes.
But I also want to proffer a different point of view.
Yeah, please.
Growing up, one of the most difficult passports you could have was a Guyanese passport. They needed passports to go to Canada. They needed passports to go to the UK. They needed passports to go to, or visas to go to the US. So what was the most difficult passports to travel with? The UK went against that trend and granted them visa-free access to the UK.
Yeah.
And other countries are now reducing restrictions on Guyana.
Yeah.
Same people as we are.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Well, they have
the oil money. I don't know.
Perhaps. But the point is there is a shift in the perception in the UK of our relative risk. Relative to Guyana. And of course, hydrocarbons, oil money has a part to play in it. But I mean, what have we done to give confidence to those authorities who should be our counterparts that we are conducting ourselves, whether it's CBI or whether it's immigration or asylum seeking, that they would not institute requirements which would make travel more difficult?
I get you. And I mean, obviously, I'm not sufficiently learned enough or in the background to know what the conversations are. But again, Stephen, I worry also that even these international institutions or these agencies and these countries, that there is at times a very rash, hard decision that is made as distinct from saying, well, let's work with you. What is it that you are currently doing which is problematic, apparently, according to you, that we can work with you? Because the truth is, we both agree that we don't want the visa restrictions. Let's say that was the position. What are the levers between? And again, every time I do a negotiation, of course, they talk about not negotiating over positions, but finding the common ground somewhere in between that allows us both to be able to maximize the outcomes and the objectives. And I worry that that may not be the case. I may be wrong, but I worry that may not be the case. Especially considering that, let's not fool ourselves, the UK and the US and these countries know of that same coloniality of the mind, that our success or our international presence is determined by where we can go. So if we're able to go to the UK visa-free, we somehow are superior than somebody else in the region who have a visa imposed, and they know that. And they know the resonance and the deep cultural happiness that we have. And I'm not reducing the fact that it obviously makes people's lives easier. You have less money to spend. You have no story to worry about. You can travel all across the world in some instances because you have a very strong passport. I'm not reducing that in any way, shape, or form. But I worry that at times we are being bullied to accept a particular position as opposed to saying, hey, let's work with you on this distinct particular matter. And I'm not old enough, but the stories that I read show that this is no different from bananas and financial services and climate change, etc.
And you make a valid point, and I'm not taking away from that point at all. But just to say that those requirements or restrictions were not imposed on Guyana. They certainly were not imposed on Barbados, the other countries which the UK and the Europeans still enjoy confidence in. And I have to ask myself the question, what has changed? What has changed to allow a long-standing relationship which permitted easy access for those persons in authority to determine that that country, and I'm speaking about Saint Lucia, it could be Antigua, it could be Dominica, is no longer worthy of accessing our country on terms which are favorable. So, I think there's a lot for us to reflect on. I take the point that, of course, if he who pays the piper calls the tune, those countries have resources. They are development cooperation partners. We are in a senior partner relationship with them. Our tourists come from these countries. So we're not equal players in a sense. Morally, we are equal. As human beings, we're equal. But in terms of economic power and our ability to influence outcomes, we don't have that same leverage. But I think it's something that we need to continue to reflect on.
For sure.
And see exactly how we can address ourselves in a way which would restore and renew that confidence. So let's see what happens. Maybe when you return, you could help us to reestablish those relationships.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
As a professional plumber installing many different brands of pumps, I'm beyond impressed with the Pedrolo line of products from Bryson Company. With a better performance ratio, energy efficient, less noise and turbulence, the Pedrolo line of products is a game changer for all applications. Whether it is self-priming pumps, booster pumps, submersible pumps, deep well or drainage pumps, Bryson Company caters for all your needs. Don't hesitate to get yours now.
The benefits of a tropical solar water heating system, call 453-1868 in Castries or 454-6344 in Beaufort.
Now, I'm amazed at what you have been able to accomplish, but beyond your academics, I'm seeing that you're writing a book about a most esteemed Saint Lucian, son of the soil, Mr. Danley Alexander, a jurist who practiced in Nigeria. I believe he was Attorney General. I believe he sat on the bench in Nigeria. What attracted you to Danley Alexander's story? And what have you learned so far?
How long do you have? Suffice it to say, and that's the bad thing about talking about projects in motion, because if you speak too much about the project, people may not buy it. But if you say too little, people may still not buy it. But
tell us as much as you feel comfortable.
It was during, I think probably Dr. Anthony's, one of his independence speeches, I think he made mention of the story of Danley Alexander and others he mentioned have to be told. I think also in the CCJ debate, he made the point of how the Caribbean has always produced excellent jurists and we don't need anybody else in the world to tell us that we do. And he mentioned Danley Alexander in a sort of fleeting way. Not fleeting in a bad way, but when you just see something that everybody's just supposed to know. And I said, wait, there's a meme that says, wait, you're not just going to skip past this. That is how I felt in that moment. And I said, but how is it that somebody from what the colonizers at the time called the colonial backwater, where the reports of 1920s were saying very simply that these young boys in this country can't speak any English, they speak a broken French Creole and they have no educational futures and therefore send all of them on the banana fields. How could somebody from that same country in Soufrière and Castries in some respects and in Vieux Fort rise to be able to get the open scholarship in the 1930s after Arthur Lewis, go to the University College of London and topping the classes? That's the people that couldn't speak English. Going to Middle Temple Inn, going to Jamaica, going to Turks and Caicos, going to Nigeria and ultimately becoming the Chief Justice of Nigeria from Saint Lucia.
Wow.
And that there has not been a scholarly inquiry about him in a very serious way. I felt it was an injustice.
Absolutely.
But it was not only his story. It is that I fear that in this country, we have not celebrated sons and daughters of the soil. We don't know them. We don't teach about them. People may not have, maybe you may say we don't have the resources in place to be able to ensure that the young boys and girls grow up seeing heroes around them within the society that look like them, that feel them, that touch them, and saying that story has to be told. And that's how I felt. Not for fame, not for money, nothing. But because there has to be a time in this country whereby people grow up knowing that in this country, somebody was able to rise from Soufrière and become the Chief Justice of the biggest African nation during all of the military debacles, but from Saint Lucia.
Wow. And in your research so far, what have you discovered? And your research, is it primary research from Saint Lucia, or how are you going through the process of?
It's from all over, right? But what I've been finding is, I guess, less about this. I mean, this will come out in the project, his judgments, etc. But what fascinates me is that every single account I see speaks about his integrity, speaks about him being an honest person, speaks about him being a humble person, speaks about him being caring, him being one who obeys and respects the rule of law and respects rules and institutions and believe that he's not bigger than an institution, but also that he never forgot and always made mention of the fact that he is from Saint Lucia. So what the research has demonstrated to me as well is that his success is not defined by European powers, albeit there is a relationship through which he receives the accolades because his educational pathway passes through Europe. He gets the island scholarship courtesy of the British government, and therefore the Europeans or the British facilitate his education. But his ultimate pinnacle is not necessarily in Europe, but it's an African country. And that even within that country, there's a great sense of reverence for the Caribbean West Indian jurist, Sir Danley Alexander, that came from Saint Lucia. And his story is remarkable, but only testament of the amazing relationship that Saint Lucians have with West Africa, of being able to go across, whether it be Arthur Lewis and Nkrumah, or just the replete of individuals that we've not given the time of day to be able to show individuals that your success need not be defined by any particular place, by the Western conception, if you like, but that it can be global while still at the time maintaining Saint Lucia.
Are you a young Pan-Africanist?
I guess you can call me that with what I know of the term. But listen,
in your speech you spoke about the AU.
Yeah.
You spoke about the AFCFTA.
Yeah.
You spoke about the fact that in 2050, I'm sure you know that fact, 70% of the African population is under the age of 30, great demographics. The fact that, the statistics and the demographic frame of Africa would make it one of the most lucrative markets in the world. Of course, they have hydrocarbons, they have mineral resources. Have we made sufficient effort to join with our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic?
No, we've not. The truth is we've not done it we're making efforts now, but we have not done it in a sustained and concrete way that sees them as equal partners of our development. Right? And I made it in the speech that all of the things that you mentioned, whether it be the youth bulge, whether it be also the revolutionary nature of the young people over there as well, whether it be opportunities for education and trade, and tourism. All of these things provide us, added obviously the obvious historical connections. But I don't think that we've maximized the continent or every single country within the continent as part of our own development first. But again, I've had the pleasure of being to Ghana because I was part of a legal fellowship, a Garvey and Krumah legal fellowship. And it transformed my life. I could never forget that experience because not only the cultural significance, not only being able to go through some of the experiences that I had there, but again, just being able to feel at home, being able to see every single facet of life reflected, and you almost think, but wait,
this is me. This is me. This is my family.
This is my family. This is my people. It's as if you're walking through Castries. When you're walking over there, everything felt amazing, and the cultural richness. I remember going to a fabric store, and the lady almost taking me through every single fabric within the store and its particular meaning. And I never doubted that it is a proud people. But at times, again, I worry that we've not created that connection. That colonialism did a very, very good job at making us friends with some people in the world and seeing some people as reverent and some people as others. And I fear that we have to be able to bridge that middle passage in a positive way, and we have to do it really, really quickly.
So colonialism has made other our own family.
Yeah. And that we revere them. We believe that the economics of it justifies it. And I mean, I saw it play out with the president's visit. I told you I'm not engaging in the debate about the president and his visit and what's surrounding him. I couldn't care less about that. My question was always more philosophical. Prince Charles would come, nobody would question why the airport is closed. Nobody. Right? And again, it's also the language and the terminology. So when the president came, somebody said, but Prince Charles came and we didn't even close the airport for him, so why must we close the airport for Tinubu? It's already the mental framing that one is more important than the other, as opposed to seeing both of them as equal partners of Saint Lucia's development or equal heads of states that should have the same privileges. And I did the painful task of going in every single social media news outlet in this country and literally reading every single comment, taking out the filters that says view most relevant comments, and I read all. And I put them in a table which I put as part of an article of the classifying of why the president should not visit. It had nothing to do with not knowing about Nigeria's potential and the opportunities for development. It had nothing to do with the questions relating to his own questions of governance. And mind you, believe you me, some of the presidents could come into Saint Lucia and we wouldn't care less about whether they corrupt or not. It had nothing to do with these things. It had everything to do with some racialized connotation of some syncretic religion or some nonsense that we probably don't know what we're talking about as a reason to delegitimize the arrival. And I have a problem with that because it doesn't speak to the economics of anything. It speaks in my mind to us not being able to reconcile with ourselves. The second day to close that, when I entered the master's program at Oxford, my Kenyan friend Joki walked up to me and she says, "Do you call yourself African?" So that we could add you as part of the Africans WhatsApp group. I told her what Kwame and Nkrumah said. I'm not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa is born inside of me. And therefore, I should be part of that group. As a matter of fact, I should be the leader of that group. Right? But I only say all of this to say that we have to reconcile with ourselves and who we are and where we've come from. And we may take away some parts. We may not like some parts. We may copy and paste and cut out. But I worry that we've not done the reconciling.
But how do we reconcile with Africa?
Yeah.
When we haven't reconciled with our brothers and sisters across this beautiful sea called the Caribbean Sea.
Yeah.
We haven't reconciled with our brothers in Dominica and in St. Vincent and in Grenada and in Antigua and in St. Kitts and in Anguilla and in the BVI, Cuba and Haiti, Trinidad.
Yeah.
We've embarked in concentric circles on two integration processes, the OECS Economic Union, and of course we know Dr. Didicus Jules is pushing it as hard as he can.
Wow.
And we have also the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which brought about the Caribbean single market and economy. And we know that we woefully delayed in implementation, whether it's free movement, whether it's the movement of capital, whether it's the development of the internal market, a regulatory framework for services. We have not pursued it in a way which makes those relationships of kith and kin, those relationships which are fundamentally important to who we are, our destinies, our brothers and sisters next door.
Yeah.
We've not given them pride of place. Why?
I think for many reasons, right? I think lack of political will at the level of the leadership, the insularity of I'm from this place and nowhere else, and therefore everybody else is an other. I think at times maybe it may be a lack of technical capacity or lack of political buy-in and stakeholders. But you're absolutely right that and I tried to make that point, and I hope I did, that there isn't a single issue that we haven't spoken about and written about in principle. The issue always is the implementation problem. And we have ignored the fact that people have been moving across the region and used to move long before our integration movements. But that also is the only way in which we'll be able to realize the full potential of the movement. And if we're not going to adopt an EU-style approach, right, of all of the power in the center, or an OECS approach with most power in the center, then what we need to do is, within the existing arrangement, implement the decisions. And again, not delay progress over time. And it's at times very simplistic things.
But you framed it the implementation deficit disorder.
Yeah.
And we'll go back to our initial conversation earlier. When we started, we spoke about the perverse incentives, which cause the status quo to remain.
Yeah. And
this is my hill. This is my glory.
Yeah.
This is my fiefdom. I can fire you. I can hire you.
Yeah.
I will go to the UN. I will beat my chest. This is my place.
Yeah.
So this is my passport. This is my currency. This is mine. And who are you for me to devolve that authority to you?
Yeah, and again, as you said, that's part of the problem. And you raised another point, which I guess I had not considered for a long time, is that when you move more power to the center, as you said, you're also moving power away from the current political officials who also believe that they have a stake. Now, but you see, the problem with copy and paste institutional systems is that nobody ever said that had to happen. Right? There can be a solution, at least in my mind, of more power being in the center, but with some of the same actors being able to still exert power.
It's called a federation.
And again, as rightfully as you know, it's the same idea of the insularity and people wanting to be governors of their colonies, so to speak, as opposed to recognizing that we all in this problem and malaise of problems together. That when the hurricane hit, it going across the Caribbean Sea. It may pause one place, but certainly it's coming to another. But we have to be able to see that some of our collective action problems can only be solved together. There is no world in which a small country within the region can have the answers to everything. Let's take, I guess, health, for example. I don't know that each of these countries have the resources to be able to provide the world-class health for every single possible issue. But Barbados is 30 minutes away. Dominica, probably 15 or 20. There has to be a world in which we can create centers of excellence across the region in very select, distinct matters. And whether it is that Jamaica then becomes the center of excellence for athletics, there's no problem in which we ensure that we have some level of elite training here, but also within the regional framework, understand that other countries have skill sets that we can benefit from as well. And there has to be a world in which we understand that all of these things can coexist. You can be Saint Lucian while still being a West Indian. These two things are not in conflict. And there are some very, very simple things that we have to be able to do, and it does not take ages. For God's sake, I can't go to another country and I have to be able to then get a driver's permit and then pay a whole set of money and then have a validation of a license to be able to drive a rental for one day. Or you have to be able to go across and you have to re-register your company in another country and then re-register it again in another country. And then you have to be called to the bar 10 times. All of these things are just figments of our imagination that we create because we want to maintain some traditional stamps. And they don't stamp anymore.
The stamps.
It has to be a problem. Right?
Again, the first incentives, I need to have my stamp, he has to have his stamp, she has to have his stamp, and you return to me.
We have to do better.
We have to do better.
We have to.
You spoke about challenges, common challenges, which need to be solved collectively.
Yeah.
I know time is at a premium, so I'll go to the next one, which is collective problems. CIP has become a collective problem. The Europeans have most recently indicated that we have to exit the programs by a time certain. What is your view on the CIP and whether or not it is right and proper for us to exit the program?
Yeah. I think the framers of the program always knew that it had a shelf life. I'm not naive ever to believe that they believe that it would have been done forever. I think it provided or it has provided revenue to be able to engage in your developmental questions, but for a period. Obviously, I worry about countries who have massive amount of their revenue coming solely from that program, because if it is that you've not utilized the revenue from there for redistribution and for beefing up other sectors, then you find yourself in trouble. I guess maybe Saint Lucia, that may not be the case because the data suggests, at least in my mind, about 10 or 15% of your GDP being because, or your revenue being because of CBI. But I think, obviously, I don't know that it benefits anybody to be able to come out of the program before it ends, because the truth is, if you come out from the program before it ends, you don't get the money. But certainly, I don't know that the Europeans will rethink their position because they've made their position quite clear. What worries me, however, about the narrative surrounding is that I think it's a lot more complex than cash for passports. I think we've simplified it just because it's good for political narratives. But a lot of the work that I have read suggests, at least in my mind, that it's not, of course, there are all going to be nefarious characters that use any system to be able to benefit themselves. During the hurricane, you will find the free odd people that will decide that now is the perfect time to go in a store and steal. But that does not mean that it's characteristic of the people who are suffering from the hurricane. There will always be looters. As a matter of fact, some people waiting for that time say, yes, that's the time to go by courts. You knock on wood or something, right? But on a more serious note, what worries me is the way in which there are other individuals, legitimate individuals, who probably in the US, who some of the data says, who not really sure about the domestic political situation, and therefore you say, you know what, I want to be able to acquire a second passport. Or it may be somebody from Abu Dhabi or elsewhere who want to be able to move easily. But again, it goes back to your central thing that you mentioned. The inability of the passport to rest on movement of others then makes it a more difficult sell. Because if an overwhelming amount of people are utilizing it to be able to engage in movement, right, then obviously it becomes subject to the machination of other countries. And therefore, obviously, that's where the problem comes in. And therefore, if it is that the movers determine, hey, well, you're moving a bit too much, right, then we need to be able to end it. However, what worries me is that I don't know that the movers have provided any concrete evidence in my mind that speaks to this great mobility that is causing national security concerns in their country.
But do you think that the passport is a reflection of our sovereignty? It's not just a piece of paper. In fact, the passport is owned by the state.
Yeah.
As a reflection of who we are as a person, as a people.
Yeah.
And I think Ralph Gonzalez was very, very clear that citizenship is not
for sale.
is not a commodity. And I think we have, or some may argue, have commoditized our sovereignty and commoditized our sovereignty.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, in public policy, one has to recognize what is the cost of delivering public goods, what is the how do we reconcile the developmental benefits with the cost? And of course, now we are seeing the cost. The bill is coming to us now, and it has to be paid by the ordinary man and woman. How do you reconcile the developmental gains from that program with the cost that we have to pay? Can we write that check?
Two things. The first thing in my mind is something, I guess, which is a much more symptomatic, or this issue is just symptomatic of a deeper political crisis within the wider region. That I don't know that in many instances, beyond, I guess, the manifesto pledges, which, by the way, comes on the eve of the election as if political parties don't want people to read it. And therefore they sneak it in through the night. But anyway, that's for a separate conversation. It is symptomatic of a deeper issue that at times I don't think we engage people in this society on what are the trade-offs for certain public policy decisions and permit them to make a determination
But
about
a leader is appointed or elected to lead.
Yes, but a leader is also not appointed only because he has the magic wand to wave around. And it is a limited version of democracy to be able to say that you have all the answers, as opposed to engaging the people on some very big questions to determine, hey, this is what is at stake. Help me make that trade-off. On one end, there is a possibility of this program possibly ending because of this, that. These are the benefits that are up in the air versus these developmental benefits. And you also are part of that choice. I don't think that we have done that sufficiently well. That's the first thing. The second thing also is that I don't know that we can ever write that check. But I'm not naive to the fact that at times I don't only see development as skyscrapers. I know politicians at times like that because it means that you could go over there and you can look at a plaque that says, I opened this.
Or you could cut a
ribbon. You could do some, I understand the appeal, and I'm not taking away the fact of the construction jobs and the posterity of institutions, of buildings that happen in the wake of it opening. I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti-infrastructure. But I do not doubt in my mind that in a case of Dominica, for example, that the program has been used to be able to rebuild people's lives post-hurricane. Or whether it be other social and economic programs or benefits that touch ordinary people's lives that may not be made manifest for an actual building. And I think sometimes we get caught up, and I always have these arguments with my friends when they ask me for at times, what that parliamentary representative doing? And I tell them, well, first of all, I'm not in the community, so I don't know. But what would make you believe that they're doing something? Oh, but I'm not seeing nothing opening. Oh, so you want a building to see that something is happening. And trust me, the politicians can do that. They can build a building. Anybody could build a building. You pay a contractor, you get the right amount of money, you get the right loan, you get the right interest rate. But there are some other things that we need to be able to do. Now, I will take your premeditated point, because I could see it in your head, that there must, however, be a greater level of evidence on the impact of some of these programs.
Correct.
We have not done a very good job at measuring, because we have not measured good enough to be able to know what are the interventions that we have to make to be able to get the best policy outcome.
So the counterfactual I have to look at, and I know we have to wrap, but the counterfactual is also important. If we see no evidence of infrastructure, then there should be concomitant social improvement, and there should be strengthening of our human capital.
Yeah.
And that is not evident either. So whilst our people are doing a fantastic job, the businessmen, the vendors, the everyone in the society is giving their all.
Yeah.
The real life conditions, whether in terms of the social outcomes, economic outcomes, these have atrophied.
Yeah.
So we see no evidence on the infrastructural piece, and the average man and average woman on the highways and byways of this country, when you speak with them, there is not a concomitant benefit that they could demonstrate as a consequence of those programs. But I think go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just say again, I think sometimes also we get caught up in also this seeing the immediate response as being the concomitant benefit. I these social programs, among other things in education, sometimes takes a generation, but also at times it may
You
be.
think that we're improving?
I think
You think that we're improving?
I think in some respects, for example, whether it be in education, for example, I think we have, at least the data suggests, increased the amount of individuals who have been able to attain and receive higher education in this country.
Our demographics have shown that we have a lower intake, so the percentage is higher as a consequence.
I mean, I guess you can make that argument, right? But it does not take away from the fact that even in higher education, post secondary school, that there has been some evidence of assisting. Now, my problem, however, is that when we don't see an immediate benefit, right? We somehow believe that nothing is happening, right? But at the same time, that even along that journey, there are going to be leakages. And we have to be able to do better, because I believe that the poverty idea is a whole lot more complex than just making one intervention and somehow somebody's mysteriously wealthy, right? But again, I take the point that we have to do a lot more better measuring, but also the communication of the success stories, so that way we do not think that we're pouring water into a basket.
Very good. Last question.
Yeah.
On this part before we wrap, and we go to our final break. Professor Justin Robinson, in his now famous essay, No one is coming to save us. I think this dialogue that we're having and these conversations through this podcast is really reflective of my internalization of that belief that no one as an individual or as a society, as a community generally is going to save us. We are alone. Europe, other priorities. The US, other priorities. Canada, other priorities. The developing world, their own internal priorities. We are alone.
Yeah.
What do you take from Justin Robinson's essay?
It was phenomenal. And I liked that he did not present it as despair or declinism, but a liberating idea that you're not waiting for no godfather somewhere that'll come and give you a Christmas gift, as godfathers normally promise but don't deliver, right? Not knocking my godfather down. Makes me believe I say he never give nothing. But it is a liberating idea, because it means that we must have the confidence in ourselves and we must do what we must do internally to be able to save ourselves. There is nobody coming in the wing somewhere with some developmental aid to say, here's a basket, please dip in it and do what you will. And therefore, it forces us to be able to use the intellectual capacity that we have, because we have a lot, to be able to think through some of the issues that are plaguing this country and this region in a very serious and meaningful way, and bring all parties together, not political parties, but parties, plural, to be able to help solve the issues in this country. Not Washington, not Ottawa, while some countries will be partners in that development. But we have to determine internally that we want it.
Are we not hopelessly divided that we can't even hold each other's hands to solve common problems which are evident?
I'm a young man. I believe in optimism. At least I've not gotten to the time where I could be cynical. But I think that, again, we are at times too tribal. I loved, not only, of course, I was in tears when Julian Alfred won, but I saw this country together in a way that I have not seen this country before. People were happy. People were jubilant. But again, I fear that at times we become tribal. We become negative. I mean, I don't want to sound like the Prime Minister who sometimes say that it's as if nothing good not happening in this place. I'm not saying that we shouldn't organize about the issues. We should. We should organize about the issues, debate the issues seriously, commit to reform. But there are things in this country that unify us in collective good and collective happiness. And we have to find a way to be able to, as you say, not be hopelessly divided on party lines, on familial lines, on artificial creations that we've created to be able to divide each other, as opposed to
bringing us together. Well, on this hopeful note, we take our final break, and we'll see you after this break.
The 1461 podcast is brought to you by Bryson Company Limited in partnership with IBS, Harbor Club, Tropical Solar, and 1461 Enterprise, distributors of the world's best coffee. For inquiries, contact us at sales@1461.lc or 717-9306.
I think we've gone through everything. We've talked about policy, public policy, schooling, education, reparations, CIP, everything. This has been a complete show.
Yeah.
The one thing that you and I spoke about before, we're talking about natural law and legal positivism, and it just in reflecting on where we are as a country. Natural law, of course, is based on morality, what is right, fundamental to and separate and apart from what is written. What is written and what is right are often the same, but often not the same.
True.
Do we as leaders have a moral responsibility in terms of our conduct, the things that we do, the things that we accept? Does morality play a role in our development? Or is that are these matters extraneous to governance?
No, they're fundamental. In circumstances where individuals are, whether it be electing officials or have role models within the society, it's based at times on their own individual personalities, their characteristics, and also their competence. So you're fundamentally right, and sometimes I think we also we create, again, try to make this mutually exclusive argument of morality, for example, not affecting law. That I don't know that that's not the case when you have a society which is also bound with religion and bound with ethics, etc. So you're absolutely right that there is a correlation, and that's what leadership is about.
So leadership has to ensure that the collective morals of a country or a place or business is adhered to. And that is pursued to the betterment of that society. So 2 last important questions. First one is, looking ahead. You've dreamed big. You've worked hard. You've been successful. And my sense is you've just started to demonstrate and give truth to your potential. What do you see for this country? What do you see for the future?
I think about it all the time. At times, obviously, it emerges out of quarrels with my friends about where this country should really be going. But honestly, I think I'm not pessimistic. I believe in the potential of the people of this country, who every day get up and go about their daily lives, working hard, playing by the societal rules, because it has prescribed for them that this is the outcome if it is that you've worked well. But where I want the country to go, which is a more fundamental question, is a place where people's socioeconomic circumstances and their name and other cleavages do not determine what their potential will be. That individuals are, yes, able to bring these as part of their experience and are able to come to the table with all of these conflicting parts of themselves. But more fundamentally, that the opportunities are provided to them on merit, but at the same time, allowing them to realize their potential and their gain. And we will not all get it right. Everyone will not be able to realize their fullest dreams and aspirations. I told you I wanted to be a cricketer. Look at where I am now. But at least providing a menu of options for the people of this country to be able to ensure that they realize their fullest potential. That the child that is born in the hut would be no different or disadvantaged than the child who's born in the mansion. And ensuring that ordinary individuals who have dedicated their lives to this country can have a peace of mind, can have the highest level of life aspirations that can be afforded to them. And it does not have to be only questions of economics. It may be questions of ensuring that the elderly within the society have people that they can talk with, that they can walk with, that the sidewalks and the grass is cut sufficiently well that people can walk on the side and the elderly can have a program that people can engage with them around the communities. That the cultural artists can feel valued in their country and hear their music being played all around and not have to wonder if they're competing with people from overseas for their music. The farmer can have their time to be able to feed the nation and export. And the young intellectual, for sure, will be able to be respected and admired within the society and be allowed freedom to be able to engage in academic debate and not fear victimization and not fear that this person will give them a job because they say this or they say that. That's the type of vision, at least I see in its most broad terms. And people could be happy to be able to tell the world over that I've come from this place.
I am Saint Lucian.
And I am Saint Lucian.
Fascinating, hopeful. I think this is one of the interviews which I believe has brought out what is best in us, what our potential can be. We have not glossed on you in your own very Socratic way. You have not gone and glossed over the challenges of our society. You face them head on. Mm-hmm. But certainly you've leaned into some of the solutions which are at hand.
Yeah.
And my hope is that this conversation, as to your intervention, will not fall on deaf ears, and that you continue to speak your truth to the extent that policymakers would seize on the opportunity, not the challenge, but the opportunity before us to make this society a better one.
Yep.
So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
But in closing, it's one question I think which would really define who we are, who you are as a person to your audience. What's on your playlist?
So, I mean, many things are, and I engage in a shuffle of some sort. I love soca. I love soca music. I could listen to it all day, every day. So I mix at times now a soca with an Afrobeat and a reggae. But one particular song that lives rent-free in my head is Flavor by Imran Nerdy. But I have enjoyed that song a lot.
Rahym,
if I could sing, I'd sing it now. Thank you for
Rahym, Augustin-Joseph, thank you for being on the 1461 podcast.
Thank you for
Wish you every success.
Thank you.
Keep on going.
Thank you.
This has been the 1461 podcast. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify. The Airborne Academy, audio partners of the 1461 podcast. Flower arrangement by the Dreamy Group.